The garage door slammed so hard it rattled the entire house, and I knew my 17-year-old daughter Megan was about to destroy what was left of my marriage. "You're done pretending to love Dad," she screamed at her mother through the thin walls. "He was never enough for you anyway. You need a real man. Ethan's way better than him, and he actually listens to you." I froze mid-rep on my makeshift bench press, the barbell hovering inches above my chest. The rusty weights I'd bought at a garage sale after losing my job suddenly felt like they weighed nothing compared to those words. My wife Leah's voice came back muffled, defensive, but I couldn't make out her response. "Real man?" I thought, lowering the bar with shaking arms. "Ethan's allergic to effort. I've seen him run from a salad." But the joke fell flat in my head. Because Ethan Morrison, my former boss, my wife's current boss, and apparently much more, had everything I used to have. The corner office, the respect, the money. And now, it seemed, my wife. I sat up on the bench, sweat dripping onto the cracked concrete floor of my garage gym. The space was pathetic compared to what I used to afford. A few dumbbells, a punching bag held together with duct tape, and motivational posters from my high school boxing days that now looked more like mockery than inspiration. The shouting match inside continued. I could hear Leah's voice getting higher, more defensive. Then Megan again. "Just admit it, Mom. You're embarrassed by him. We all are." That one hit harder than any punch I'd ever taken in the ring. I stood up and walked to the small window that looked out onto our suburban street. Maple Grove Lane used to be my pride and joy. A tree-lined avenue in a decent neighborhood where I'd bought a house with my own company's profits. Now it felt like a prison. The neighbors probably knew about my unemployment by now. Small towns like Millbrook had a way of spreading news faster than wildfire. Mrs. Henderson from across the street was watering her garden, but I caught her glancing toward our house. The shouting was probably audible from the sidewalk. Perfect. Just what my reputation needed. The front door slammed, and I heard a car engine start. Through the window, I watched Leah's Honda Civic, the car we'd bought together 3 years ago when times were good, reverse out of the driveway. She was going somewhere in the middle of a family crisis. That was new. Or maybe it wasn't new. Maybe I'd just been too blind to see it. I grabbed a towel and headed inside, where Megan was standing in the kitchen, arms crossed, looking like a smaller, angrier version of her mother. She had Leah's dark hair and sharp features, but my stubborn jaw. Right now, that jaw was set in pure defiance. "Dad, we need to talk," she said without preamble. "About what, exactly?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. "About how you're ruining everything." Her voice was cold, clinical. "Mom's been offered a partnership at the firm. She could make real money, but she feels guilty because you're this." She gestured at me like I was a broken appliance. I looked down at myself. Sweat-stained t-shirt, old gym shorts, stubble, because I'd stopped shaving every day since the layoffs began. When had I stopped trying? "This is temporary, Megan. I'm working on getting back. It's been 4 months, Dad." She pulled out her phone and started typing. 4 months of you moping around, working out like you're going to become Rocky or something. It's embarrassing. What are you doing? Posting. She held up the phone, showing me a TikTok video she'd apparently just uploaded. The caption read, "When your dad thinks he's still 20 and relevant. Hashtag loser dad. Hashtag cringe. Hashtag send help." The video showed me through the garage window, struggling with weights that were probably too heavy for my 42-year-old body. The audio was some trending song I didn't recognize, but the message was clear. I was a joke. "Megan, delete that." "Why?" "It's true." She pocketed the phone. "Mom deserves better. We all do." Before I could respond, she was gone, stomping upstairs to her room. I stood alone in the kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of the life I'd built. Family photos on the refrigerator, showing happier times. A mortgage payment notice on the counter. A stack of rejection letters from potential employers. My phone buzzed. A text from my old friend Vic Santos. "Fight Club tonight. You need to hit something that isn't a bag." Vic owned a legitimate boxing gym downtown, but twice a month he hosted underground matches in the basement. Nothing illegal, just guys who needed to work out their frustrations with their fists instead of their therapists. I'd been a regular before I got married and respectable. Maybe it was time to get back in touch with that version of myself. I was about to text him back when I heard a car in the driveway. Leah was home, but she wasn't alone. Through the kitchen window, I watched her get out of the passenger side of a sleek, black BMW. The driver's side door opened, and Ethan Morrison stepped out. My former boss was everything I wasn't anymore. Tall, confident, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly unemployment check. He said something to Leah that made her laugh. Actually laugh, in a way I hadn't heard in months. Then he did something that made my blood freeze. He walked around to the trunk and pulled out grocery bags. Not just any grocery bags, bags from Whole Foods, the expensive organic market that Leah and I used to shop at together before money got tight. They were shopping together, like a couple. I watched through the window as they approached the front door, talking, quietly, comfortably. Ethan was carrying himself like he belonged here, like this was his house, his wife, his life. The front door opened and I heard Leah call out, "Mark, we brought dinner." We. Not I brought dinner or Ethan helped me with groceries. We. Like they were a unit. I walked into the living room just as they entered, both of them carrying bags. Leah looked genuinely happy for the first time in weeks. Ethan looked smug. There was no other word for it. "Mark," he said, extending his hand like we were meeting at a business conference. "Good to see you." I stared at the hand for a long moment. This was the same hand that had signed my termination papers. The same hand that was apparently now grocery shopping with my wife. The same hand that had probably touched her in ways I didn't want to think about. But I shook it anyway, because what else do you do when your replacement is standing in your living room? "Ethan," I said, "this is unexpected." "I was just helping Leah with some errands," he said smoothly. "You know how busy the firm has been lately." The firm. Morrison, Hayes & Associates, where I used to be a partner until Ethan decided I was dead weight, where Leah still worked as a senior associate, apparently climbing the ladder faster than ever. "That's very thoughtful of you," I managed. Leah was unpacking groceries in the kitchen, and I noticed they were all the expensive brands we'd stopped buying. Organic vegetables, free-range chicken, wine that cost more than $30 a bottle. "How's the job search going?" Ethan asked, and I could hear the false sympathy in his voice. "It's going," I lied. "Well, if you need any references," he let the offer hang in the air, and we both knew it was meaningless. Ethan Morrison giving me a reference would be like a executioner recommending his victim for a job. I'll keep that in mind. Leah called from the kitchen. "Dinner will be ready in 20 minutes. "Ethan, you're staying, right?" "If it's not too much trouble," he said, looking directly at me. It was trouble. It was a lot of trouble. But I nodded anyway, because I was apparently a glutton for punishment. The next 20 minutes were the longest of my life. I sat in my own living room, watching my wife cook dinner with my former boss, listening to them talk about work, about cases I used to handle, about a world I was no longer part of. Megan came downstairs and immediately gravitated toward Ethan, asking him about his car, his job, his opinions on everything from college choices to career paths. "Your dad and I used to be quite the team," Ethan told her at one point, glancing at me, before he decided to pursue other opportunities. Other opportunities. That was a nice way of saying before I fired him for questioning my billing practices. Dinner was surf and turf. Lobster and filet mignon that probably cost more than I used to spend on groceries in a week. We ate off the good china, the wedding china that only came out for special occasions. Apparently, Ethan Morrison visiting our house qualified as special. The conversation flowed around me like I wasn't there. Ethan told stories about high-profile cases, about client dinners at expensive restaurants, about a legal conference in Hawaii that he and Leah were apparently both attending next month. "It's a great opportunity for networking," Leah said, her eyes bright with excitement. "The kind of thing that could really advance my career." "Our careers," Ethan corrected smoothly. "We're a team now." We're a team now. The words hit me like a physical blow. After dinner, Ethan finally left, but not before kissing Leah on the cheek, a gesture that lingered just a little too long to be professional. I watched from the window as he got into his BMW and drove away, probably back to his downtown condo, with its city views and its lack of family photos. Leah was washing dishes when I approached her. "That was nice of him," I said carefully. "He's been very supportive," she replied without looking at me. "Supportive how?" She turned off the water and faced me. "Mark, we need to talk." Those 4 words. The 4 words that end marriages and start wars and change everything forever. "I'm listening." I can't do this anymore. Her voice was quiet but firm. The financial stress, the uncertainty, watching you give up on yourself, I can't pretend everything's going to be okay. I haven't given up. You're trying to relive your glory days in a garage gym, she interrupted. You're not trying to move forward. You're trying to go backward. And Ethan is moving forward? The question hung in the air between us. Leah's face went through several expressions: surprise, guilt, defiance, and finally, resignation. Yes, she said simply. He is. There it was. The truth. Finally out in the open. How long? I asked. Mark, how long, Leah? She looked away. 2 months. 2 months. While I'd been sending out resumes and going to interviews and trying to rebuild my career, my wife had been rebuilding her life with my replacement. Are you leaving me? I don't know, she said, and somehow that was worse than a yes. I need time to think. Time to think or time to plan? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. I went back to the garage after she went to bed. I needed to hit something, and the punching bag was the only legal option available. But as I threw punch after punch at the worn leather, I wasn't thinking about my marriage, or my job, or my daughter's TikTok video. I was thinking about revenge, and for the first time in months, I was thinking clearly. The next morning, I woke up to an empty house. Leah had left early. Client meeting, according to the note on the kitchen counter, and Megan was already at school. I sat alone at the breakfast table, drinking coffee that tasted like disappointment, and reading the local news on my laptop. That's when I saw it. Millbrook business leader discusses economic recovery, was the headline, with a photo of Ethan Morrison shaking hands with the mayor. The article quoted him extensively about the challenges facing local professionals during the recession, how important it was to trim the fat and keep only the most essential personnel. Trim the fat. I was the fat, apparently. The article mentioned Morrison, Hayes, and Associates' recent expansion, their new downtown offices, their growing client list. It painted Ethan as a visionary leader, navigating difficult times with wisdom and compassion. There was no mention of the 3 other partners he'd forced out over the past year. No mention of the questionable billing practices I'd tried to address before my termination. No mention of the fact that his economic recovery strategy involved destroying the livelihoods of people who'd helped build his firm. I was reading the article for the 3rd time when my phone rang. The caller ID showed my former in-laws, Richard and Patricia Whitmore, Leah's parents, who had never quite forgiven her for marrying beneath her station. Mark? Richard's voice was colder than usual, which was saying something. We need to discuss the situation. What situation would that be? Don't play dumb. Leah told us about your difficulties. We think it's time you faced reality. I could hear Patricia in the background, probably coaching him on what to say. The Whitmores had money. Old money. Inherited money. The kind that came with opinions about people who actually worked for a living. And what reality is that, Richard? That you were never enough for our daughter. That this marriage was a mistake from the beginning. That she deserves better than a failed businessman who can't provide for his family. The words were delivered with surgical precision, designed to cut deep, and they worked. I see, and I suppose you have someone in mind who would be enough for Leah. As a matter of fact, we do. Ethan Morrison comes from good family, stable, successful, the kind of man Leah should have married in the first place. Good family. Translation, money and connections. The 2 things I'd never had. The 2 things that apparently mattered more than 15 years of marriage. Well, Richard, I appreciate your honesty. It's refreshing to know exactly where I stand. Mark, don't take this personally. How else should I take it? The line went quiet for a moment. Then Patricia's voice came on, sharp and condescending. Mark, dear, you have to understand. Leah has opportunities now. Real opportunities. She can't be held back by someone who's given up on himself. I haven't given up. Haven't you? 4 months of unemployment, no prospects, spending your days in that garage like a teenager. That's not the behavior of a man who's fighting for his family. She was right, and that made it worse. I had been wallowing. I had been retreating. But I'd thought I was regrouping, not surrendering. What do you want from me? We want you to do the right thing, Richard said, back on the line. Let her go. Let her be happy. And if I don't? Then you're more selfish than we thought. They hung up without saying goodbye, leaving me alone with the dial tone and the growing realization that I was fighting a war on multiple fronts. I spent the rest of the morning updating my resume and sending out more job applications, but my heart wasn't in it. Every rejection email felt like confirmation of what everyone was telling me. I wasn't enough anymore. Maybe I never had been. Around noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Vic. Saw the news article. Morrison's really riding high. You coming to the gym today? I looked around my empty house, at the bills piling up on the counter, at the family photos that now felt like evidence of a life I was losing. Then I grabbed my gym bag and headed downtown. Vic's gym was in the warehouse district, a converted factory building that still smelled like motor oil and ambition. The sign outside read Santos Boxing Academy, but everyone just called it Vic's place. It was where guys went when they needed to remember what they were made of. Vic was in the ring with a kid who couldn't have been more than 16, teaching him how to throw a proper jab. He saw me come in and nodded toward the heavy bags. Work it out first, he called. Then we'll talk. I spent an hour beating the hell out of a leather bag that had seen better days. Every punch was a name. Ethan, Richard, Patricia, Megan, and yes, sometimes Leah. By the time I was done, my hands were raw and my head was clearer. Vic approached with 2 bottles of water and a knowing look. Feel better? Some. Good, because you look like hell, and that's not going to help anyone. Vic Santos had been my friend since high school, back when we were both young and stupid and thought the world owed us something. He'd gone into the Army after graduation, done 2 tours overseas, and came back with scars and perspective. While I'd been building my business and my family, he'd been building his gym and his reputation as someone who could teach you how to fight, both in the ring and in life. I saw Morrison's picture in the paper, he said. Looks like he's enjoying his success. He's enjoying more than that. Vic raised an eyebrow. And I told him everything. The affair, the in-laws, Megan's betrayal, the dinner that felt like a hostile takeover of my own life.
He listened without interruption, occasionally nodding or shaking his head.
So what are you going to do about it? He asked when I finished. What can I do? They're right. I'm a failure. Bullshit. Vic's voice was sharp. You're having a bad run. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like everyone in my life has decided I'm not worth fighting for. Then maybe it's time to stop fighting for them and start fighting for yourself. What's that supposed to mean? Vic was quiet for a moment, watching the kid he'd been training work the speed bag. You know what I learned in Afghanistan? Sometimes the only way to win is to change the rules of the game. This isn't a war, Vic. Isn't it? He turned to look at me directly. Your wife is sleeping with your former boss. Your daughter is posting videos mocking you online. Your in-laws are actively campaigning for your replacement. If that's not war, what is? He had a point, but I wasn't sure I was ready to hear it. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you stop playing defense and start playing offense. You want your life back? Take it back. How? You're a smart guy, Mark. You built a successful business from nothing. You know how to read people, how to find their weaknesses, how to make deals. Use those skills. To do what? To remind everyone why they used to respect you. To show them that writing you off was a mistake. He paused. To make them pay for underestimating you. The way he said it sent a chill down my spine. Not fear, exactly. More like recognition. Like he was describing something I'd already been thinking but hadn't admitted to myself. That sounds like revenge. Call it whatever you want, but right now they're all living their best lives while you're falling apart. Is that fair? It wasn't fair. None of it was fair. What do you have in mind? Vic smiled, and for the first time in months, I felt like someone was on my side. First, we get you back in fighting shape, not just physically, mentally. You need to remember who you are when you're not apologizing for existing. And then we remind everyone else who you are too. I left the gym feeling different. Not better exactly, but focused, like I had a purpose again, even if I wasn't entirely sure what that purpose was. On the drive home, I took a detour through downtown, past the gleaming office building where Morrison, Hayes, and Associates had their new headquarters. It was a beautiful building, all glass and steel and expensive ambition. I could see lights on in the upper floors, where the important people worked late into the evening. Leah was probably up there somewhere, working on cases that used to be mine, planning her future with a man who had everything I'd lost. But as I sat in my car looking up at those lights, I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost anymore. I was thinking about what I could take back, and what I could take away from the people who'd taken it from me. My phone buzzed with a text from Leah. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "No problem, I'm working late too." It wasn't entirely a lie. I was working, just not on anything she would expect. I drove home and spent the evening doing research. Not job hunting this time, but intelligence gathering. I looked up property records, business licenses, social media profiles, news articles. I created spreadsheets and timelines and relationship maps. By midnight, I had a clearer picture of the battlefield than I'd ever had before. I knew where Ethan lived, what he drove, where he liked to eat, who his friends were, what his weaknesses might be. I knew about his ex-wife in California, his gambling problem from college, his tendency to cut corners when he thought no one was watching. I knew about the rumors surrounding his partnership with Hayes, about the clients who'd left the firm under mysterious circumstances, about the malpractice insurance claims that had been quietly settled. Most importantly, I knew about the charity gala next weekend, the annual Millbrook Business Association dinner where all the city's power players would gather to congratulate themselves on their success. The same gala where Ethan would be receiving an award for business leadership excellence. The same gala where I was going to remind everyone that excellence comes with a price. I closed my laptop and went to bed, but sleep didn't come easily. Instead, I lay awake thinking about chess games and war strategies and all the ways a smart man could turn the tables on his enemies. For the first time in months, I was looking forward to tomorrow. The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. I told Leah I was having lunch meetings with potential employers, which wasn't entirely false. I was meeting with people who could help me, just not in the way she thought. My first stop was Marina Chen, Leah's best friend and law partner at Morrison, Hayes & Associates. Marina and I had never gotten along, but I'd always assumed it was just personality differences. Now I was starting to suspect there was more to it. I found her at Riverside Cafe, a trendy spot downtown where lawyers like to have power lunches. She was sitting alone at a corner table, typing on her laptop, looking every inch the successful professional in her expensive suit and designer glasses. "Mark," she said when I approached, her surprise seeming genuine, "this is unexpected. I was hoping we could talk." "About what?" "About Leah. About what's best for her." Marina's expression shifted subtly, becoming more guarded. "I'm not sure that's appropriate." "Why not? You're her best friend. You want her to be happy, right?" "Of course." I sat down across from her, uninvited. "Then maybe you can help me understand what's happening, because from where I'm sitting, it looks like everyone's decided I'm the problem." "Mark," Marina closed her laptop and leaned back in her chair. "You have to understand, Leah's been struggling. The financial pressure, the uncertainty about your future, the way you've been handling the unemployment, it's been hard on her. And Ethan's been helping her through it? Ethan's been supportive, yes, as a colleague and friend." "Just a colleague and friend?" Marina's pause was telling. "What are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm asking directly. Are my wife and my former boss having an affair?" The question hung in the air between us. Marina looked uncomfortable, which was answer enough. "Mark, I think you should talk to Leah about this." "I did." She admitted it. Marina's carefully composed expression cracked slightly.
"She did?"
2 months, she said. 2 months while I've been trying to save my marriage and my career. I leaned forward. "The question is, how long have you known?" I think you should leave." "That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're going to get from me." I stood up, but before I left, I played my first card. "Marina, I've been doing some research about the firm, about recent cases, about billing practices. There are some interesting patterns emerging." Her face went pale. "What kind of patterns?" "The kind that might interest the State Bar Association, the kind that might make clients ask uncomfortable questions about their legal fees." "You're fishing." "Maybe. But fish bite when they're hungry, and I'm very hungry these days." I left her sitting at the table, staring after me with an expression I'd never seen before. Fear. My next stop was the office building where I used to work. I still had friends there, people who'd survived Ethan's purges, people who might be willing to share information with their old colleague. Sarah Mitchell had been my secretary for 5 years before my termination. She was smart, observant, and loyal to the people who treated her well. More importantly, she was still on the inside. I found her in the lobby during her lunch break, and we walked to a small park across the street where we could talk privately. "Mark, it's so good to see you," she said, and I could tell she meant it. "How are you holding up?" "I've been better." "How are things at the firm?" Sarah looked around to make sure we weren't being overheard. Tense. "Ethan's been making a lot of changes, and not everyone's happy about them." "What kind of changes?" "New billing requirements, stricter quotas, mandatory overtime. He's pushing everyone hard, especially the associates." She paused. "Including your wife. Leah's working a lot of extra hours. She practically lives there now. Late nights, weekends, business trips." Sarah gave me a meaningful look. "Often with Ethan." "Business trips?" "The Hawaii conference next month isn't the first one. They went to Chicago together last month, San Francisco the month before that, always for client development." The pieces were falling into place. The affair wasn't just personal. It was professional. Ethan was using his position to spend time with Leah, probably billing clients for romantic getaways disguised as business expenses. "Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Okay. Are there any rumors about Ethan? About his business practices, his personal life, anything that might be problematic?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "There are always rumors, Mark. You know that." "What kind of rumors?" "About his divorce. About why his wife really moved to California. About some of the settlements he's negotiated for clients." She looked uncomfortable. "About his relationship with certain associates. Associates plural? Leah isn't the first married woman Ethan's taken a special interest in. There was Jennifer Walsh 2 years ago. Remember her? She left the firm right after her divorce was finalized." I remembered Jennifer. Talented lawyer, happy marriage, until suddenly she wasn't. She'd left town shortly after leaving the firm, and I'd never thought to connect the dots. "Are you saying Ethan has a pattern?" "I'm saying Ethan likes to be needed, and married women going through difficult times are very needful." The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, with Sarah filling in details about office dynamics, client complaints, and internal politics. By the time we parted ways, I had a much clearer picture of what I was dealing with. Ethan Morrison wasn't just a successful lawyer who'd stolen my wife. He was a predator who used his position to manipulate vulnerable women, a businessman who cut ethical corners when it suited him, and a man who'd built his success on the ruins of other people's lives. That evening, I was in my garage gym when Megan came home from school. I could hear her talking to someone on the phone as she walked past the open garage door. I know, right? It's so embarrassing. Like, get a job already. She laughed at something the other person said. "Mom says she might leave him. Finally, Ethan's like a million times better." She noticed me listening and had the grace to look slightly ashamed, but not enough to apologize. "Dad, you really need to stop with the whole Rocky thing. It's pathetic." "Is it?" "Yeah, Mom's moving on with her life. Maybe you should too." "Maybe I am." Something in my tone made her look at me more closely. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm done being pathetic." Before she could respond, I heard another car in the driveway. Through the garage door, I watched Ethan's BMW pull up behind Leah's Honda. They both got out, and I noticed they were dressed more formally than usual. Ethan in an expensive suit, Leah in a black dress I'd never seen before. They were coming from somewhere special. Together. I walked to the doorway as they approached the house, both of them stopping when they saw me. "Mark," Ethan said, his tone carefully neutral. "Good evening." "Evening. You two look nice. Special occasion?" Leah and Ethan exchanged a glance. "Client dinner," she said. "The Morrison Group is considering expanding their legal department." "The Morrison Group?" "Ethan's family business," she explained. "They're thinking about bringing their legal work in-house." Interesting. Ethan had never mentioned having family money during the years we worked together. Either he was very private about it, or this was a recent development. "That sounds like a great opportunity," I said. "For both of you." It could be, Ethan agreed, if everything works out. There was something in the way he said it, a smugness, a certainty that everything would work out exactly as he planned. It made me want to hit him. Instead, I smiled. Well, I hope you get everything you deserve. They went inside, and I returned to my workout, but I wasn't thinking about exercise anymore. I was thinking about the charity gala tomorrow night, about the research I'd been doing, about all the ways a man could get everything he deserved. Later that evening, after Ethan had left and the house had gone quiet, I made a phone call. Vic, it's Mark. I need to ask you a favor. Name it. That charity gala tomorrow night. Do you think you could get me a ticket? Probably. Why? Because I think it's time I reminded this town who I used to be. And who's that? I looked around my garage, at the punching bag and the weights and the motivational posters from my fighting days, at the tools I'd been using to rebuild my strength and my focus, at the weapons I'd been preparing without even realizing it. Someone who doesn't go down without a fight. The Millbrook Business Association's annual charity gala was held at the Grand Ballroom of the Riverside Hotel, the fanciest venue our small city had to offer. I stood in the parking lot, adjusting my tie and trying to remember the last time I'd worn a tuxedo. It had been at my wedding, 15 years ago, when I'd thought I was beginning the best chapter of my life, instead of writing the setup for its destruction. Vic had come through with the ticket. Apparently his gym sponsored a table for local youth programs, and he'd had a last-minute cancellation. I'd spent the afternoon getting ready. Haircut, shave, the works. I wanted to look like the successful businessman I used to be, not the unemployed has-been I'd become. The ballroom was packed with everyone who mattered in Millbrook. Business owners, politicians, lawyers, doctors, and the wealthy families who funded their campaigns and charities. I recognized most of the faces, though many of them seemed to be working hard not to recognize mine. I found Vic's table near the back of the room, where the sponsors, who'd paid for tables but weren't quite important enough for premium seating, were relegated. It was perfect for my purposes. Close enough to see everything, far enough away to avoid unwanted conversations. You clean up nice, Vic said, as I sat down beside him. Feeling ready for this? As ready as I'll ever be. The program for the evening was displayed on each table. Cocktail hour, dinner, award ceremony, and dancing. The main event was the presentation of the Business Leadership Excellence Award to Ethan Morrison, in recognition of his innovative approach to legal services and his commitment to community development. I wondered if the awards committee knew about his innovative approach to marriage destruction. There's your boy, Vic said, nodding toward the front of the room. Ethan was holding court near the bar, surrounded by admirers and well-wishers. He looked completely at ease, like he belonged in this world of power and prestige, like he'd never been anything else. Leah was beside him, radiant in a silver evening gown that probably cost more than my monthly unemployment check. She was laughing at something he'd said, her hand resting on his arm in a gesture that was intimate without being obvious. They looked perfect together. Successful, attractive, powerful. Everything a power couple should be. It made me sick. You see Marina anywhere? I asked Vic. He scanned the room, over by the silent auction tables, talking to Judge Harrison. I spotted her, elegant as always, working the room like the skilled networker she was. Marina Chen had always been ambitious, but tonight she looked like someone who was very close to getting everything she wanted. I'll be back, I told Vic. I made my way through the crowd, stopping occasionally to exchange pleasantries with people I used to do business with. The conversations were polite but strained. Everyone knew about my situation, and nobody quite knew how to handle it. Mark! Judge Harrison spotted me approaching. Good to see you here tonight. Your Honor, Marina. I nodded to both of them. Lovely event. Yes, the committee did an excellent job this year, Marina said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. I didn't know you were coming. Last-minute decision. I thought it would be good to get out, show my support for local business. I turned to Judge Harrison. I understand you're considering retirement, Your Honor. Thinking about it. Want to spend more time with the grandchildren. He chuckled. Though I'll miss the excitement of the courtroom. I'm sure you've seen some interesting cases over the years. Malpractice suits, ethics violations, that sort of thing. Marina's wineglass paused halfway to her lips. Oh, all kinds of things, the judge agreed. Though, of course, I can't discuss specifics. Of course not. Though I imagine some cases are more memorable than others. especially when they involve prominent local attorneys. "Mark," Marina interrupted, "I think I see someone I need to speak with, if you'll excuse me." She walked away quickly, leaving me alone with Judge Harrison. "Interesting woman," I commented. "Very capable attorney, though I sometimes wonder if she's entirely happy at Morrison's firm." "Oh? Why's that?" "Just an impression. She seems tense lately, like she's carrying a heavy burden." Before I could pursue that line of conversation further, the lights dimmed, and a voice announced that dinner was about to be served. I returned to my table, filing away the judge's observation for future reference. Dinner was the usual rubber chicken affair, but I barely tasted it. I was too busy watching the dynamics at the head table, where Ethan and Leah sat with the mayor, the Chamber of Commerce president, and other local dignitaries. They were the picture of success. Ethan charming everyone with stories and insights, Leah adding intelligent commentary and radiant smiles. They looked like they belonged together, like they were meant for this life of influence and recognition. But I was looking for cracks in the facade, and I found them. Ethan drank more than he should have, his gestures becoming slightly more expansive as the evening progressed. Leah checked her phone several times, frowning at messages she received. And Marina, seated at a nearby table, kept glancing toward the exit like she was planning an escape route. The award ceremony began after dessert. Several local business leaders received recognition for various achievements, but everyone was waiting for the main event, Ethan's big moment. When his name was called, the applause was enthusiastic. He made his way to the podium with the confidence of a man who'd never doubted his own success. "Thank you so much for this incredible honor," he began, his voice carrying easily through the ballroom. "When I started at Morrison Hayes & Associates, I had a simple goal: to provide the highest quality legal services while maintaining the highest ethical standards." I nearly choked on my coffee. Vic raised an eyebrow. "But success isn't just about individual achievement," Ethan continued. "It's about building teams, fostering talent, and sometimes making difficult decisions for the greater good of the organization." Difficult decisions, like firing partners who asked uncomfortable questions about billing practices. I want to thank my colleagues at the firm, especially the associates who work so hard to serve our clients. Their dedication and professionalism make everything we do possible. His eyes found Leah in the audience, and his smile became more personal. Some of those associates have become much more than colleagues. They've become true partners, in every sense of the word. The implication was clear to anyone paying attention. Several people at nearby tables glanced toward Leah, who was blushing prettily. In closing, I want to say that this award isn't just recognition of past achievements. It's a commitment to continue growing, continue innovating, and continue building something lasting in our community. More applause. Ethan raised his crystal award above his head like a trophy, basking in the adulation. That's when I stood up. The movement caught attention at several nearby tables, but I didn't care. I walked toward the front of the room, my footsteps echoing in the sudden quiet. "Excuse me," I called out, my voice carrying clearly through the ballroom. "I'd like to say something." Ethan's smile faltered. The event organizer, a nervous-looking woman with a clipboard, hurried toward me. "Sir, the ceremony is concluded. If you'd like to make a comment, perhaps it'll just take a moment," I said, stepping around her and approaching the podium. Ethan had no choice but to step aside, though his expression had turned thunderous. The audience was murmuring, unsure what was happening, but sensing drama. I took the microphone and looked out at the sea of faces, some curious, some concerned, some openly hostile. "Good evening. For those who don't know me, I'm Mark Stevens. I used to be a partner at Morrison Hayes & Associates, until I was let go for asking uncomfortable questions about our billing practices." The murmuring grew louder. Several people at the head table looked like they wanted to disappear. "I want to congratulate Ethan on his award. He certainly mastered the art of success, at least his version of it. Building teams by destroying careers, fostering talent by stealing other people's work, making difficult decisions by choosing personal gain over professional ethics." "That's enough," Ethan said, stepping toward the microphone. "Is it?" I turned to face him directly. "Because I don't think people know the whole story about your success, Ethan. About the corners you've cut, the rules you've bent, the lives you've damaged to get where you are." The ballroom was completely silent now. Even the waiters had stopped moving. "You want to talk about partnerships?" I continued, looking back at the audience. "Let's talk about how you partner with your associates. How you take them on business trips that aren't quite business. How you help them through difficult times in their marriages. How you provide such personal, intimate support." Leah's face had gone white. Marina was halfway to the exit. "Mark, stop!" Leah called out, but her voice was barely audible. "Why should I stop? Everyone here deserves to know what kind of man they're celebrating, what kind of leader he really is." I looked directly at Ethan. What kind of person destroys families for sport? Security guards were moving toward the stage now, but I wasn't finished. "You took my job, Ethan. You took my reputation. You took my wife." My voice was getting louder, more intense. "But you know what you can't take? The truth. And the truth is that you're a fraud, a predator, and a coward." That's when Ethan snapped. He lunged toward me, his face twisted with rage, but I was ready for him. Years of boxing training kicked in, and I sidestepped his clumsy attack easily. He stumbled, off balance, and I helped him along with a gentle push that sent him sprawling across the stage. The audience gasped. Cameras flashed. Someone screamed. Ethan scrambled to his feet, his tuxedo rumpled, his dignity in tatters. "You're insane," he snarled. "You're a pathetic loser who can't accept that he's been replaced by a better man." Better man? I laughed, and the sound was harsh in the silent ballroom. A better man doesn't steal other people's wives. A better man doesn't build his success on lies and manipulation. A better man doesn't hide behind lawyers and restraining orders when someone calls him out. The security guards reached us then, but I didn't resist as they escorted me from the stage. I'd said what I came to say. As I was led through the crowd, I caught glimpses of faces, shocked, appalled, fascinated. Judge Harrison looked thoughtful. Marina looked terrified. Leah looked like she was going to be sick. And Ethan looked like a man whose perfect world had just developed some very serious cracks. Outside in the parking lot, Vic was waiting by his car. "Well," he said as the security guards released me, "that was subtle." Subtle wasn't the goal. What was the goal? I looked back at the hotel, where I could see people streaming out of the ballroom, their elegant evening ruined by an unemployed has-been with nothing left to lose, to remind everyone that I'm not dead yet. My phone was buzzing with calls and texts, but I ignored them all. There would be consequences for tonight, legal, social, professional. But for the first time in months, I felt alive. The war had officially begun. The story of my outburst at the charity gala spread through Millbrook like wildfire. By Monday morning, it was the lead story on the local news website, complete with shaky cell phone video and breathless commentary about disturbing behavior and public meltdowns. I watched the coverage from my kitchen table, drinking coffee and reading the comment section like a man studying intelligence reports. The reactions were mixed. Some people called me a lunatic. Others said it was about time someone called out Ethan Morrison's arrogance. But everyone was talking about it, which meant everyone was thinking about the questions I'd raised. My phone had been ringing non-stop since Saturday night, but I'd let every call go to voicemail. Reporters, lawyers, concerned friends, angry enemies, they all wanted a piece of the story. But I wasn't ready to give them one yet. The only call I took was from Vic, who showed up at my door with coffee and donuts at 7 in the morning. "You made quite an impression," he said, settling into a chair across from me. "That was the idea. The question is, what's your next move? Because they're going to come at you hard now." He was right. I declared war publicly, and wars had casualties. But I'd been preparing for this longer than anyone realized. "Let them come," I said. "I'm ready." That afternoon, I got my first taste of the counterattack. A process server appeared at my door with a restraining order, signed by Judge Morrison, Ethan's uncle, as it turned out. I was to stay at least 500 feet away from Ethan, his office, his home, and any events he might attend. The order also included a defamation lawsuit, seeking damages for false and malicious statements made at the gala. Ethan was claiming that my accusations had damaged his reputation and cost him business opportunities. I read through the legal documents with the eye of someone who'd spent years in the law business. The restraining order was standard stuff, probably justified given my public confrontation. But the defamation suit was more interesting. It was overly aggressive, filed too quickly, and made claims that would be very difficult to prove. It looked like the work of someone who was panicking. That evening, Leah came home for the first time since Saturday night. She looked exhausted, older somehow, like the events of the weekend had aged her. "We need to talk," she said, echoing the words that had started this whole mess weeks earlier. "I'm listening." Mark, what you did on Saturday, it was unforgivable. Was it? Which part exactly? The part where I told the truth about your boyfriend? Or the part where I refused to quietly disappear so you could play house with my replacement? You humiliated me. In front of everyone we know, everyone I work with. How am I supposed to face these people? I don't know, Leah. How does someone face people after they've been caught cheating on their husband? She flinched like I'd slapped her. It's not that simple. Isn't it? You're sleeping with another man. You're planning to leave your husband for him. You've been lying to me for months while I tried to save our marriage. Seems pretty simple to me. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. The financial stress, watching you give up, feeling like I was carrying everything alone. So you decided to share the load with Ethan? He was there for me when you weren't. I was there, Leah. I was right here, fighting for us, fighting for our family. But you'd already decided I wasn't worth fighting for. Tears were running down her cheeks now, but I felt no satisfaction in seeing them. This woman had been my partner for 15 years, the mother of my child, the center of my world. Watching her cry should have broken my heart. Instead, it just made me tired. I want a divorce, she said quietly. I figured as much. What are your terms? Mark, what are your terms, Leah? The house? Custody of Megan? Alimony? Let's get it all on the table. She looked surprised by my businesslike tone. I want to be fair. Fair. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to be fair now? After months of lying, cheating, and planning your exit strategy with my former boss? I never meant for it to happen this way. But it did happen this way. And now you want to negotiate a fair settlement for the marriage you destroyed. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the suburban street where we'd planned to grow old together. Here's what's going to happen, Leah. You're going to get your divorce, but you're not going to get everything you want. What do you mean? I turned back to face her. I mean, I'm not the same man who let you walk all over him for the past 4 months. I'm not going to quietly sign whatever papers you put in front of me and disappear into the night. If you want out of this marriage, you're going to pay for it. Are you threatening me? I'm promising you. You want to destroy our family for Ethan Morrison? Fine. But I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what that cost. The next few days were a blur of legal maneuvering and social warfare. Leah moved out of the house, taking Megan with her to stay at her parents' place. The divorce papers were filed, along with motions for temporary custody and support. But I wasn't sitting idle. I'd been building my case for months, gathering evidence and documentation that painted a very different picture of recent events than the one Leah and Ethan were trying to sell. I had copies of hotel bills from their business trips charged to the firm's accounts. I had witness statements from other employees about their relationship. I had documentation of the questionable billing practices I'd tried to address before my termination. Most importantly, I had Marina Chen. She came to see me on Thursday evening, looking nervous and defeated. Mark, we need to talk. I'm listening. About Saturday night. About the things you said. Some of them were true. Which things? Marina sat down heavily, like she was carrying a weight she could no longer bear. The billing irregularities. The client funds that were moved around. The cases that were settled without proper documentation. You know about all that? I helped cover it up. The admission came out in a rush, like she was relieved to finally say it. Ethan said it was temporary, that we were just smoothing out cash flow problems. But it kept getting worse. How much worse? Bad enough that if the State Bar Association investigates, we could all lose our licenses. Bad enough that some clients could file criminal charges. I felt a cold satisfaction settling in my chest. And you're telling me this because I can't do it anymore. Because what happened to you was wrong, and I was part of it. Because. She looked up at me with desperate eyes. Because I think Ethan's planning to make me the scapegoat when everything falls apart. Smart man, you're the perfect fall guy. Ambitious associate who got in over her head, made some bad decisions, covered her tracks by blaming the partners. Will you help me? The question hung in the air between us. Marina Chen, who had never liked me, who had encouraged my wife's affair, who had been part of the conspiracy to destroy my career, was asking for my help. What kind of help? I want to come clean, to the Bar Association, to the clients who were cheated, to everyone. But I need protection. I need someone who understands the legal system and can help me navigate this. And in exchange, I'll tell them everything. About the billing fraud, about Ethan's pattern of behavior with female associates, about the real reason you were fired. She paused. About Leah's involvement in covering up the financial irregularities. That last part hit me like a physical blow. Leah knew? She's been handling some of the paperwork for months. She had to know something was wrong. So my wife hadn't just betrayed our marriage. She'd betrayed her professional ethics as well. She'd helped cover up fraud while I was being painted as the problem employee who couldn't be trusted. When do you want to do this? I asked Marina. Tomorrow, before Ethan realizes what's happening and tries to stop me. Then we better get started. The next morning, I accompanied Marina to the offices of the State Bar Association, where she spent 3 hours giving a detailed statement about the financial irregularities at Morrison, Hayes & Associates. She brought documentation, client files, and email records that painted a damning picture of systematic fraud and ethical violations. By afternoon, investigators were at the law firm, serving subpoenas and seizing records. By evening, the story was breaking on local news. Prominent law firm under investigation for financial fraud. Ethan Morrison's name was mentioned prominently in every report. I was at Vic's gym when the news broke, working off nervous energy on the heavy bag. Vic was watching the coverage on the small TV in his office. "Your boy's having a bad day," he called out. I joined him to watch the news. Ethan was leaving the law firm's building, surrounded by reporters and cameras, looking harried and defensive. He declined to comment, but his body language spoke volumes. This was a man whose perfect world was collapsing around him. "Think it'll stick?" Vic asked. With Marina's testimony and the documentation she provided, yeah, it'll stick. And your wife? That was the question I'd been avoiding. Leah's involvement in the cover-up made her a potential target of the investigation, but it also made her a victim of Ethan's manipulation. The prosecutors would have to decide which narrative they preferred. We'll see. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Leah. "We need to talk. Now." I found her waiting in the parking lot outside the gym, sitting in her Honda with the engine running. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Get in," she said when she saw me. I climbed into the passenger seat, and we sat in silence for a moment. "You did this," she said finally. "The investigation, Marina's statement, all of it. You orchestrated this whole thing." "I didn't orchestrate anything. I just helped someone tell the truth." "You destroyed him. You destroyed the firm. You destroyed everything." "I didn't destroy anything, Leah. Ethan destroyed it when he decided to steal from clients and manipulate his employees. I just made sure people found out about it." "And what about me? What about my career? What about it? If this investigation goes forward, if charges are filed, I could lose my license. I could go to jail." "Then maybe you shouldn't have helped cover up fraud." She turned to look at me directly, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Real fear. "Mark, please. I know I hurt you. I know I made terrible choices, but please don't let them destroy me over this. I was just trying to protect my job, to keep the firm stable. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. But people did get hurt. Clients lost money. Employees lost jobs. I lost everything." I paused. "And you helped make it happen. What do you want from me?" It was a good question. What did I want? Revenge? Justice? An apology? All of the above? "I want you to tell the truth," I said finally, "about the fraud, about Ethan, about why I was really fired. I want you to stop pretending you're a victim and start taking responsibility for your choices. And if I do that, then maybe we can find a way to end this marriage without destroying each other completely." She was quiet for a long time, staring out the windshield at the darkening sky. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll cooperate with the investigation. I'll tell them everything." Everything? Everything. 3 weeks later, the dominoes finished falling. Ethan Morrison was arrested on charges of embezzlement, fraud, and professional misconduct. The law firm was dissolved, its assets frozen, pending restitution to defrauded clients. Marina Chen received immunity in exchange for her cooperation, but her legal career was effectively over. She was moving back to California to start fresh in a different profession. Leah avoided criminal charges by cooperating fully with prosecutors, but she lost her law license and was ordered to pay substantial fines. She was working as a paralegal at a small firm across town, making a fraction of her former salary. And me? I was sitting in the office of my new business, Stevens Consulting, specializing in helping small businesses avoid the kind of financial irregularities that had destroyed Morrison, Hayes, and Associates. It wasn't the same as being a partner in a prestigious law firm, but it was mine, and it was honest work. The divorce had been finalized the week before. Leah got the house. She needed it more than I did, but I got joint custody of Megan and no alimony obligations. More importantly, I got my reputation back. The investigation had vindicated my concerns about the firm's practices and made it clear that I'd been fired for asking the right questions. I was reviewing contracts for a new client when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. Stevens Consulting, this is Mark. Mark, this is Tom Bradley from Bradley Industries. I don't know if you remember me, but we met a few years ago at a Chamber of Commerce event. I remembered him. Successful businessman, owned several manufacturing companies in the region. Of course, Tom. What can I do for you? I've been following the news about Morrison's firm, and I have to say, I'm impressed by how you handled yourself throughout that whole mess. It takes courage to stand up to corruption, especially when it costs you personally. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm calling because I have a proposition for you. My company is expanding, and we need someone to head up our legal and compliance department. Someone with integrity. Someone who won't be afraid to ask hard questions when necessary. I sat up straighter in my chair. I'm listening. The position comes with a substantial salary, full benefits, and equity in the company. More importantly, it comes with my complete support to build a department that does things the right way. It was everything I'd lost and more. A chance to rebuild my career, to provide for my daughter, to prove that doing the right thing sometimes did pay off in the end. When would you like to meet? I asked. As I hung up the phone, I thought about the journey that had brought me to this moment. The betrayal, the humiliation, the months of doubt and anger, and planning for revenge. The public confrontation that had seemed like career suicide, but had actually been career resurrection. I thought about Ethan Morrison, sitting in a jail cell awaiting trial, his reputation destroyed and his future uncertain. I thought about Leah, starting over in a small apartment with a job that paid less in a year than she used to make in a month. I thought about Marina, fleeing to California to escape the wreckage of her legal career. And I thought about myself, sitting in my own office, with a phone full of opportunities and a future full of possibilities. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about building something better from the ashes of what they tried to take from you. Sometimes the coldest win is the one where you don't just survive, you thrive. I picked up the phone to call Tom Bradley back and accept his offer. It was time to start the next chapter of my life.